Hey guys, so a lot of you may not know that other than making YouTube videos, I also spend a fair amount of my time developing websites and helping people with technical issues with their websites and that kind of thing. So over the years, I've worked for a few different agencies, and one of the issues that we always ran into when we were developing websites was versioning and storing code safely and being able to go back to old code, things like that. And of course, that's where sites like GitHub come in. And you may or may not know that GitHub is kind of the go-to place for being a code repository and versioning system for developers. Now, besides the steep learning curve, there are some other things that are kind of off-putting, in my opinion, and in the opinion of other people. And that's things like, unless you pay for a private repository, all of your repositories are public, meaning that everybody has access to your code. And really, most of the time that's fine, but sometimes you want to have access to your code and not let other people have access to it for whatever your reasons may be. Additionally, things like internet outages or server issues or things like that may make it more difficult to be able to reach GitHub all of the time. So there's an alternative solution that we're going to look at today called Gitlab. So Gitlab is a hosted solution similar to GitHub, except that we're not going to look at that particular version of Gitlab. What we're going to do today is actually look at a self-hosted version of Gitlab that you can install on a virtual machine on your computer, or if you have a dedicated machine, you can install Gitlab on that, access it via an IP address, and have like an internal GitHub repository system or versioning system of your own. Now, I'm going to lose some of you here, and I totally understand. Gitlab can run on 4 gigabytes of RAM and a couple of processing cores, and it'll be fine. Ideally, though, you want at least 8 gigabytes of RAM for your Gitlab system, whether it's virtualized or a dedicated machine or whatever the case may be. You want at least a minimum of 8 gigabytes for it to run effectively and smoothly and not run into a lot of issues. There's going to be questions, I'm sure, of can I run on 2 gigabytes? You can sure try. But the reality is it probably won't work. The absolute minimum that I've tested it with is 4. It was sluggish, it was slow, it crashed. 4 isn't ideal. You can make it work if you're patient with 4 gigs, but 8 is really the minimum that I would suggest. Also, it's the minimum that GitLab suggests on their website. So here in a minute, we'll switch camera angles. We'll take a look at my desktop. I'll show you the process of getting an Ubuntu instance set up. I'm going to fly through that real quick because I've already made videos on how to virtualize Ubuntu. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but I'm still going to go through that process so that you can follow along there. And then I'm going to show how to install and get Gitlab set up on your virtual machine here. We're not going to go into usage in this video. We're just going to focus on getting it up and running. So with that being said, let's go ahead and switch camera angles. We'll go to my desktop. We'll take a look at some stuff. We'll get Gitlab set up and we'll go from there. So here we are on my desktop. You can see that I've got a few different instances of Gitlab already going here. And I've also got an Ubuntu 16.04 that I was looking at. But we're going to start from scratch here. So the first thing we want to do is actually click New. And again, this is going to go real quick. So if you want to know how to install Ubuntu in a virtualized system, I've got a video to that. I'll link to it up here somewhere. You can go check that out and then come back if you get stuck at any point in this video. So we're going to call this Gitlab tutorial. It's going to be a Linux instance. We're going to say Ubuntu 64-bit. We'll click Next. Again, we're going to give it 8 gigs. I think that's close enough of RAM here, so we'll say Next. We're going to create the virtual disk now. We're going to go ahead and click Create. We're going to use a VirtualBox disk image. That's standard. And we're going to set it up as dynamically allocated. Watch my other videos. I explain why I like to do dynamically allocated instead. Part of it's faster, part of it's because if you don't use 40 gigs, it doesn't take up 40 gigs. So go ahead and click Next. We're going to go ahead and say, I'm going to give it 40 gigs. You probably don't need to give it that much, but when you're dealing with things like repositories, file size is going to add up in a real hurry. So what I want to do here is actually switch this over to this, to one of my larger hard drives. You can see I've been playing a lot with Gitlab here and Ubuntu and Wine and that kind of thing. But we're going to call this Gitlab, tutorial. Now, when I've got the like where it says Gitlab tutorial, you can obviously name it whatever you want to name it. This is just for my memory, so I know what video or what instance I made this for. So this is for the video, so I'll go ahead and click save. So I've got it in the right drive. I've got the right amount of space. Go ahead and click create. So then I'll go ahead and click settings. I go into system processor. I'm going to give it 2 processing cores. We've already given it about 8 gigs of RAM. That's fine. Display, I always crank that up. Storage, next thing we want to do here is click on this empty IDE controller and then select wherever you've got your Ubuntu 16.04 ISO. If you're not sure how to download an ISO, I actually made a video about that recently as well. Again, I will link that right up here. So next thing, we'll want to go over to network. We want to change this from NAT to bridged adapter, and the reason for that is if we don't use bridged adapter, it'll give it a weird IP address. We actually want something that's accessible from your network. By going with a bridged adapter setting, you'll actually get, you know, like a 192.168.1. whatever or 0. whatever that you'll want to use so that all of the machines on your network can access this virtual machine. If you give it like a NAT IP address setup, it'll give it something that you can really only access here. It's a cluster. Go with the bridged adapter setting. Everything else is fine. We'll go ahead and say OK, and then we'll go ahead and power this on just by double clicking there. This should pop up, and then here in a second we should get a 16.04. Yep. So now we should get our little Ubuntu thing going on here. I'll go ahead and make that full screen, just because. And then we'll go through this installation process. Again, I'm going to crank through this real fast. I've got other videos, again, showing how to install Ubuntu in a virtualized environment like this. Okay, so on this screen, you're going to have a couple of options. Do you want to just try it? That'll run it as a live CD. Anything you do won't be saved. Trying Ubuntu in a live CD scenario is great if you're doing a restoration for, say, a crashed PC or something like that. We want all of these settings and installations to take, so we're going to click Install Ubuntu. And then we'll crank through this installation here. We're going to go ahead and install the updates while we're installing this, just to save us some time later. If I was going to use this as a desktop environment, I would go ahead and install all this third-party stuff. But because we're just going to effectively run this as just a platform that will install Gitlab on, we're not going to worry about all of this other stuff for now. So we'll go ahead and click continue. We'll go ahead and erase the entire disk and install Ubuntu. We don't care about this other stuff right now. Just go ahead, use the simplest, most straightforward settings here. Click install. And this is fine. This is just confirming, hey, this is what we're going to do to your hard drive. Now, again, this isn't your actual hard drive. This is a virtualized hard drive in that VDI or that virtual disk image. So this won't affect your Windows installation at all. So go ahead and click continue. And now it's going to ask what time zone am I in. I'm fairly close to Denver, so we'll say that's fine. Then it should ask us for some keyboard stuff. English is fine for me. You can make your own changes there as you need to. I'm going to call this my name. I'm going to say DB Tech. The computer's name, we'll call this Gitlab tutorial. We'll call this DB Tech, and then we'll say password on all of those, and we'll say login automatically. Now, make this password whatever you want to make it. I just do password for these because nobody gets on my computer. I don't make them accessible to the outside world. This is just for tutorial's sake. If you're going to use this in any kind of a production environment, though, I do suggest that you make it your username and password something a bit more complex, something that will be harder to hack. So just putting that out there. So we'll go ahead and click continue. We're going to log in automatically. Again, this isn't a great idea if you're in a production environment. You may want to require a login. Again, for what I'm doing for this video, I'm going to tell it to log in automatically. So we'll go ahead and click continue. And then this process will take a little while. It's fairly standard, really. It'll take 5 minutes or so, roughly, to copy everything over and actually get to a point where it'll ask us to remove the installation media and then click enter to reboot. We'll do that. It actually removes the installation media automatically, which I think is great. But once it gets to that point, we'll go ahead and reboot. We'll jump into the Ubuntu desktop, and then from that point, we'll run a couple of commands on the Ubuntu desktop, and then we're going to minimize that and do everything from the terminal on our Windows machine here, because it's just easier that way. So we'll go ahead and let this run, and then we'll come back when it's actually ready to reboot. Okay, so as promised, now we've got our screen here that says you need to restart the computer to use the new installation. We'll go ahead and click Restart Now. And then it says, please remove the installation medium, then press enter. We're going to go and press enter because it already did that automatically, which is great. Okay, so here we are on our desktop. This is good. We were glad to see this. The first thing we want to do here, we want to make this little note for later once we get to a point where it'll let us. There we go. I'm going to open a terminal. And the first thing we want to do is find out what our IP address is on the network here. So we'll say ifconfig, and here we've got a 192.168.1.27. We'll want to make sure that we keep that in mind for later. Now the next thing we want to do, again, to make this easier, we want to actually install an openssh-server, and this way we can do everything from our Windows environment and just kind of minimize the Ubuntu desktop here. So what we'll do is we'll say sudo apt-get install openssh-server, and we'll give it we'll see what is our, we'll give it our root password here. And then we'll say yes. There we go. I don't know what that little glitch was, but whatever, it's working now. Sometimes you gotta try things twice. That's one of the things I get in the comments a lot of, hey, I tried this, it didn't work. And my immediate go-to response is, try again. Sometimes things just don't work right, you gotta try again. So that's proof, sometimes you just gotta try again. So yeah, that's that. So next thing I wanna do here is I'm gonna minimize this. And then I'll go back to my Windows environment here. In fact, I'll minimize all of this stuff, and I'll say I want to open up, putty. Say let's click in here. 192.168.1.27. And yep, we want to authenticate that. That's fine. We're going to say we're going to log in as dbtech with a password. So now we're actually manipulating everything on that Ubuntu desktop environment from our Windows environment. So that way we don't have to do everything from there. So next thing we want to do here is I'm going to do some copying and pasting from some notes I've got up here. And some of this is going to be duplicate, but I'll walk you through it as we're going through this part. So first thing we want to do is actually install and configure the required dependencies. So first thing we've got is sudo apt-get install. That's normal. We're going to give it a Y flag, just says yes, automatically do this. Don't make me say yes to all of this. And then we're gonna use a curl command to install again openssh-server, which we've already done. So that part's not necessary, but it's there in my notes. So we're just going to do it again. And then we're going to get some certificates here. So we'll go ahead and say OK. Again, it wants my password. So I'll go ahead and click that. And then we'll let this run for a second. And now that's done. Now, according to Gitlab, the next step should be, or could possibly be, to install Postfix. And Postfix is a mail server that lets you send out notifications for when people sign up. Most likely, if you're the administrator of this platform, you're going to be the one creating user accounts. So you're not going to need to have your system send out a bunch of emails. If you want to do that, you can. You can also install a mail server later if that comes up, but we're going to skip that right now because installing mail servers is a bit more outside the scope of what this video is about. So the next thing we want to do is actually add the Gitlab package repository and install the package. I will have all these commands available in the description down below, so you can copy and paste if you want to follow along that way, or have a link to the actual tutorial that Gitlab has put out so that you can get it directly from there as well. So we'll go ahead and paste that in here. Now it's just saying we're going to download this script.deb.sh from this URL, and then once it's done downloading, we're going to go ahead and run it. Okay, so that was easy enough. So the next thing we want to do is set up our external URL, basically the way that we're going to access it on the network. You may have a host name that you want to give it. You may have an IP address that you want to give it based on, like in this case, it was 192.168.1.27. That's actually what we're going to do here. So let me grab this information here. I'm going to copy that. We'll go ahead and paste that in here. Again, we're saying we're giving the we're setting a variable for the external URL to be the 192.168.1.27. Here is where we're actually going to install Gitlab, and this will take a little while, but we'll go ahead and press enter, and we'll let it run through this process. So here you can see that it's got 500 megs to download, about 501. Luckily, I've got a decent size or decent speed connection here, so we're done with the downloading portion of things. Now it's got to actually unpack it, install, configure some stuff. Again, this will take a little while, but that first part was quick on my end. It will definitely be a different time frame on your end, depending on how fast your internet connection is. So this screen may take longer than expected, and that's fairly normal. And it may seem like it's locked up, it's not doing anything, it's become non-responsive. One of the things you can do here to check that is actually pull open your Ubuntu instance here. There we go. Let's minimize this a little bit. And if you watch down here in the bottom, I've got a little hard drive symbol and a little network symbol here. As long as those are kind of, flashing and beeping, doing their thing in the background, you know that you actually haven't locked up. In fact, as I say that, you can see that now it's scrolling past a bunch of stuff that it's doing here. But if you ever feel like your system has become non-responsive, just pop that open and take a look at those two little icons and give them a few seconds and watch to make sure that they have the little icons that flash. If they flash like that, you're still good. Everything's still working. It's just, it takes a little while for this thing to install. Okay, so now the installation is done. You can see the right here it says Gitlab should be available at this address. So we'll pop open Firefox here, drag it down here, and we'll say 192.168.1.27, and we'll hit enter. If everything worked right, we should get a website. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do here, this is going to be for your root account, and your username will be root. There's nothing you can do about that for this account. But what I want to do here is give it a password. Again, don't make this password like I'm doing. Give it something relevant, something that'll be harder to guess than password, especially if you're using this in a production environment. So we'll say change password. So then again, there'll be root, and in my case, password. I'm not going to save, and we're going to say not now. Cool. So here is Gitlab installed on a virtual machine on my network, being accessed from a Windows environment that I can really access this from anywhere. And here, just to prove it, let's see if we can see that. There we go. There, it's on my phone. You can see the IP address up there. Let's back it up. Maybe. There. Really hard with that glare on there, but there it is. It's on my phone. I'm really able to access it from anywhere. So just to kind of walk around this a little bit here. If you come up, you can create a new project, new groups, people, configuring, that sort of thing. But there's a couple of areas that I want to show you first in here. And the first thing is, like, you can go to your profile. You can actually set up, this looks very, very similar to GitHub, to show like your most activity and that sort of thing. Projects you've contributed on, personal projects, code snippets, which I think is great. So there's that. That should be very familiar if you're at all familiar with GitHub. If we go into our settings here, this is going to be settings for your account, in this case the root user account. But if we can just go ahead and click new, or we can choose that. Like if I go into, let's find something here. Yeah, let's just give it my avatar. Oops. Oh, that's, no, screw it. We'll just say save as new. There, now I've got my avatar set up there. You know, I can change my name to DB Tech. And then you can just go ahead and fill in all this information. Again, if you're setting this up on a local environment for, say, for you or for your office, this stuff doesn't necessarily matter, but it's there if you want it to be there. Go ahead and click update. And of course, you can go into your account. There's all this kind of stuff over here. One thing you will need to do, and maybe I'll talk about this in a different video, is you'll need to set up an SSH key to be able to use this and actually communicate with a Git bash application. So that's definitely something for another video though, but just know that in order for this to work, you will have to set up SSH keys or PGP or GPG keys. I'm a bigger fan of SSH, but that's just me. But you've got all these different things you can kind of go through here. You know, you can look at active sessions or preferences. Well, what color do you want your navigation to be? Let's do light red. I like that. You know, how do you want your syntax highlighting to be? I like them dark. Actually, I like the solarized dark better. You can set, you know, what you want your layout to look like, that kind of thing. We'll click save. And then hopefully, if everything goes well, it will save. There we go. Oh, preferences saved. Yeah, it was just up there at the top of the screen. So the other thing that we'll want to do here is actually take a look at the admin area right up in here. And this is where you can see everything regarding projects, users, groups, all the kind of stuff that you would want to see. You can monitor your system info, your background jobs. You can see that I've given it 2 cores, 8 gigs of memory here, 30-ish gigs of disk usage. It's been up for 6 minutes. So you can get a real in-depth look at all your stuff here. Messages that have been sent back and forth between users, I believe. Oh, no, I lied. This would be a broadcast message. So you could say, this is a broadcast message. And you can tell this to start whenever. I'll just backdate it a little bit and then post date it here a little bit. We'll add a broadcast message. And then we've got this message up here saying, you know, if you need to give your users a bit of information, hey, we're gonna have system downtime. Hey, we're doing updates at this time. Hey, don't forget to check your email for this. Whatever the case is, you can have this broadcast message up there. But we'll go ahead and delete that for now. System host applications, like there's all kinds of stuff you can dig through in here. And I don't know that I necessarily need to go through a lot of this. My goal here was just to show how to set this up on a virtualized Ubuntu environment. And here we are. So yeah, hopefully this video was helpful. Hopefully it was, hopefully I didn't go through it too fast. Again, there's other videos that I've made on how to do certain things, and those will be linked in the description down below as well. So you can always access those whenever you need to get some information, more information, explanation, whatever, on how to do certain things. I didn't want to make this video too terribly long because it's YouTube and we all have short attention spans. So so all of this is set up, it's ready to go. Obviously I'm accessing this from a different computer. In another video I'll show how to set up a project, how to actually connect to the server, that sort of thing. So hopefully, again, this video was helpful. If it was, it would really mean a lot to me if you give the video a thumbs up, just so that I know I'm on the right track for what you guys are looking for. If you like this kind of content, hitting the subscribe button would be awesome. The notification bell might be helpful if you want to get notifications when I upload this kind of stuff. And I say maybe. The YouTube system is broken right now, but what do you do? So yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up here. If you've got questions, comments, want to tell me anything, whatever, description or the content section, the comment section down below is a good place to do all of that. Also, you can hit me up on my social medias. Twitter is the best place to get me. I'm usually more active on Twitter than I am on Instagram, but yeah, so go follow me on those. Again, links to everything down in the description below. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Thanks so much for your time. I always appreciate your support, and I'll talk to you in the next video.